Hi guys, it's April and we're back to coloring more bark. Not exciting, but exciting all at the same time. Hi Mandy, welcome. See, we already have some people showing up. I am actually somewhat put together today, so less chaos, hopefully, this stream. Um, haven't quite decided how long I'm going to stream. I have maybe 30, 45 minutes in which we can see how far we get on this bark. I think I want to try and get like this chunk done. It's kind of where my brain wants to finish everything. So I think that's what we're going to do. Um I'm doing great, Mandy. How are you doing? This is just okay, how do I explain this week? Between allergies and just work and life chaos is it's been exactly that, just chaos. I am ready to just take it slow and relax and try and regroup, and maybe next week we'll mellow out a little bit. But we always have those weird ebbs and flows in life. And I am so glad we are in spooky season because, yes, I consider September the start of spooky season. I'm not so crazy that I have all of my spooky decor out, but I start partaking in the spooky movies and the spooky drinks and bringing out all the fall clothes because fall is me. But that is neither here nor there. Just a reminder of what my colors are. I'm using the PITT pens. I have 117. 117. Oh my gosh. Coffee is not kicked in. 17.7, which is 177. How many different ways can you say one number? Oh, I said this wasn't going to be a chaotic stream, and I can't even get numbers out. Okay. 177, which is walnut brown. We have 178, which is nougat, and then we have 180, which is the raw umber. I usually go light to dark, at least with the pits, because they're not alcohol based, they're India ink, and you have to work while they're still wet if you want any kind of pseudo blending. I am going to zoom you guys in just a pinch. No, I think I want to. Whoop, too far, too far, too far. Oh, you know what? Sometimes it's easier just to move the paper yourself. Okay. I apologize. I'm going to rein it back in. I take a sip of coffee. Hopefully that'll help. Either that or it'll just make me jittery. And we're going to start. I think I'm going to start down here and then work my way that direction so I'm not putting my hand in the wet ink. So I'm going to uncap everything because that is just how I roll. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to start with that 180, that raw umber. And then switch for a little bit of that 178, which is the nougat. And then come back with the 177, which is the walnut brown. And this is literally what I'm going to be doing for the next 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to quickly go over a couple spots with the raw umber again. Just kind of help blend things out a little bit. But then I'm just going to move on to the next section. Which is a lot bigger than I expected it to be. Because all of this is connected. I think I mentioned this last stream. It's kind of helpful that this is more bark texture than anything else, because then those lines, they just feed into the texture of the bark. More than anything else. You do the same thing I do, Mandy, when I'm watching longer streams or listening to anything of significant lengths. It's like I'm always doing something. Sometimes it's housework, sometimes I'm just working. A lot of times I'm doing some kind of craft. It's just something about having that background noise is always nice. And while I would love to say I am a music person, have never been a big music person. But I love to hear stories. So sometimes it's an audiobook, sometimes it's a podcast. Other times it's just putting on someone I want to support. So I appreciate you. Even if I am not always the most exciting chatter. I'm always looking to improve how I do anything I do. And sometimes I get into slumps because I just do the same thing the same way all the time. But like I mentioned last time, I have been thinking about adding in maybe Twitch. Still don't know how I feel about that, but as some of you know, I used to be a booktuber. Started out my YouTube channel in that space, but I hit one of the biggest reading slumps of my life, and a lot of it was to do with all of the chaos around the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, and I just didn't feel it anymore. So I've been trying to get myself back into reading, and I've been part of this really wonderful book club, which has at least made sure I read a book a month. But I have been wondering if I can get myself back into reading. If you guys would be interested, as I am sitting here and coloring, if I just babbled about whatever it is I'm reading or watching, as I give you little helpful coloring tips. So see, that's part of it. It's finding the balance between what do you guys really want to hear me talk about, or do you want to just learn about my techniques on how I color? Like I said, I've been Trying to figure out where you guys feeling all that. Hi, Mike. I didn't see you drop in. Speaking of uh, horror and spooky season and all the wonders that come with all of that, I don't know if many of you guys know, but I am a Friday the 13th baby. And so I have always enjoyed Friday the 13th. And for the first time in my life, I watched part of the Friday the 13th franchise. And we're doing it old school, starting with the originals and slowly working our way through all of the movies, whether good or bad. Sometimes you've just got to take uh, the interesting to find those really good classics. So that was an experience. I mean, I knew the premise of Friday the 13th, but I had never actually sat down and watched the original. And so finally got to experience that. I'm sure Jeff appreciated my commentary throughout the whole movie. Because that is just who I am. Just have to let my opinions be known. Yeah, so I'm not this Friday the 13th wasn't my birthday, but I was born on Friday the 13th. It was actually May. A couple months until my birthday still. But because of it, I quite enjoy all of the Fridays that are on the 13th. It might explain why I enjoy chaos so much. Just because I am just pure chaos myself. I can blend some of this. Oh yes, the Poltergeist movies. So that was, and we did those ones last year, and I mean, I had on and off seen clips from the Poltergeist franchise, and I watched the original for the first time. Was it last year or was it the year before? I don't quite remember. Doesn't really matter. But yes, I don't think Jeff appreciated my reaction to most of that movie. You know, when you have that movie from your childhood and you remember it and the nostalgia of it or the trauma of it that it instilled in your life, and then you have someone who hasn't ever seen it and they sit down and watch it and their first gut reaction is to um laugh at certain parts. Like I said, I don't think he appreciated that quite as much as I did. Ooh, are you guys talking Magic the Gathering? I will admit, I am not a player of Magic, but I absolutely adore the cards. Some of them, they're just the nerd in me loves it so much. Some of the artwork is gorgeous. That's why I really love some of the card games. I honestly don't know most of the rules of magic. I'm honest. But I feel like if I did get into it, I'd become quite obsessive and to do that with things. Heck, I still have Pokemon cards from my childhood that I refuse to give up. And why do you ask? Because they're pretty. Did you tell that I wanted to be an artist from a very young age? Because I did. And here I am, coloring on the internet. Oh, you were forced to watch Poltergeist when you were 5? Oh, I can't even imagine what that would have done to a 5-year old. Especially when you're still at that stage where you're the difference between reality and make believe are very blurred. See, like I said, there are people. I mean, they go all in when they get into that kind of gameplay or that kind of culture. So yeah, I mean, I can understand because I'm like I said, I don't know a lot about magic, but I mean, if you've got a system and you've got a way, and yeah, that would be a whole rabbit hole that I'd get lost in, and no one would see me for months to years. You should have seen me when I first took up gardening. I was obsessive learning about everything, and it was probably a little insane, but in the end, worth it because I absolutely love the garden we have right now, and it produces so much of our food. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would force anyone to watch those kind of movies. You have to be in the right headspace for those kind of things. Especially to do that to a child. I don't know. I have a couple of godchildren that I adore, but I can't even imagine traumatizing them in that way. Kirby's books are super detailed, and you have to be in the right mood for them. But I've always liked the super detailed ones, which is why I think I do the Thomas Kincaid books as well. There's something about like putting all of that work in it, even if it takes super long to get it done. Maybe it's just the satisfaction of seeing it all come together. Like I said, I've spent years on one page before just trying to get it done. And that was a Kirby page that I spent over a year doing. See, I want to get more into Joanna Basford. I honestly do. But I just, and maybe it's Maybe it goes back to how like weird I am. I she does a lot of like the lighter style of flowers and gardens and things, which isn't bad. I'm just not always in the mood for those, I guess. Um, and I originally avoided a lot of her coloring books because they were two-sided. And when I started coloring, it was purely markers. And I wasn't quite into colored pencils yet. And maybe I should go back now that I've got a little bit more colored pencil experience under my belt and see how I feel about them. I do have a couple. I have her Christmas one, which I do a page out of every Christmas. At least I have for the last, what is it, 5 to 7 years. And of course, I'll bring that out again. Was that the right one? Is that 78? Okay, yep. And I do have some of her artboard versions. Maybe I need to go back and look at some of those because it's been a while. I mean, it's been since last Christmas that I've done Joanna. Okay, do I wanna? Ooh, good question. But I will admit, because of the type of coloring pages I like to do, I don't finish nearly the amount of pages that I've seen some of the other very talented YouTubers, color tubers, whatever you want to call them, complete within a month. Always impressed when they put out their completed pages videos. Always have so many that they've completed. I'm like, I've been working on the same page for like 3 months now. Which I think is fine. I mean, we all work at our own pace. And I used to be one of those ones who was like, yeah, I gotta see how many I can complete in the month so I can keep giving you guys content. But I think over the years, I've kind of mellowed and been like, I do this as a stress reliever. So I'm gonna try and not put stress on it if at all possible. So yeah, I'm just kind of going at my own pace. Seeing what will happen. Enjoying the ride. think I was started that weird tangent talking about trying to get back into reading. I am currently in the middle of Pearl of China, which is historical fiction, literary fiction. You could call it many names. I mean, it's based off of a real life person in history, but it is fiction. And it isn't what I normally read. I will let you know that right now. I am usually a reader for escapism. So I live in the realm of sci-fi, fantasy, supernatural, thrillers, horror, that kind of stuff. So this is completely out of my realm of normal reading. Not to say that it's bad in any ways. It's just not something that I would pick up on my own for sure. I am liking the glimpse into the history of China, some of those facets of the Chinese culture. And it is a very quick read. But once again, I can't see myself ever wanting to pick this up for your enjoyment. One of those books. I mean, it's a literary book, so it's written for a reason. It's written to make you think about something and maybe change your world outlook, which is fine. Just not always why I read. And with all of that in mind, it's written like literary fiction. And that is to tell you all about a person, not necessarily make you empathize with them or become that person. So it's very much a different reading experience. And it can feel a little textbooky at times because of it. Only about halfway through it right now. I mean, I guess if you're interested in Chinese history, it would be an interesting book to pick up. Or if you just want some different worldviews. But otherwise, I can't I can't say it's one of my favorite reads. But I did finally finish my reread of Tempest and Slaughter by Tamara Pierce, which is the story of Numar's childhood, at least the beginning of Numar's story. And I kind of wanted to reread it because I had recommended it to my mom to read because she'd never read any of the Tortall books. And I was trying to remember where it ended because it was the most recent book written by Tamara Pierce in the Tortall universe. And I had a feeling that the story wasn't quite finished, but she hasn't come out with the next book in years. And so I was trying to remember where it ended, and for sure it did not end with completing the story. Now, once again, I'm like, when is the next book gonna come out? And why is it taking this long? My concern is that it's never gonna get finished. And that would just break my heart because Numar is one of my absolute favorite characters in the Tortal series. And the fact that we even got started on a series about his childhood was so exciting. But like I said, now I'm concerned that I'm not gonna necessarily get the complete story. I don't know if you guys have any series where you've had that issue with. No. Clean stopping point for a lot of parts. Kind of start bleeding together. I don't necessarily want to lose the little mossy parts. Oh. Sorry, I have totally lost my train of thought. Got super focused on what I was doing. Which means coffee resupply. Ooh, can you even see that bottom corner of where I was coloring? I mean, I suppose it's done now. Sorry about that. If I ever start coloring off the screen, just start yelling at me in the chat. Please. Okay. What else can I babble to you about since I am just coloring the same thing over and over and over again? Before we switch to that, let's just do the light. There we go. Oh, I keep getting the 178 and 177 all mixed up. Barrels are too closely related in color. Trying to decide if there's anything else exciting happening. Oh, like I mentioned, this is a question before I go too deep into my spiral about what I like to use. I kind of mentioned this, but I started out as a marker girly because I am a graphic designer by training. And so I've always truly loved like that really graphic style that is easiest to achieve with markers. I mean, you can get it with acrylics and all the rest as well, but there's something that's so much cleaner, nicer about markers. And I also grew up being a anime girl. Loved anime. Still do, but I've kind of transitioned a little bit into K-dramas. Okay, a lot. Transitioned a lot into K-dramas. So that kind of style has always influenced a lot of my art and how I perceive my art and that kind of thing. So when I got into coloring as a creative outlet, it was with markers. And as you can see, the Fiber Castell, I actually had to buy a bunch for some of my studio art classes. So I already had them on hand. And then I was seeing all the beautiful things that can be achieved with alcohol based markers, especially Copic, and the space they held in the manga and um, anime parts of art. So that kind of inspired me to pick up the Copics, small little packs of them, and explore with those. So I always seem to come back to pit pens and Copics, but I have been pushing myself recently. Well, it's been a couple years now that I've been trying to learn uh, colored pencils, and that is because Thomas Kincaid. I really like achieving some of that more artistic painterly quality without using paints because paint medium is just a little too much for me. I would love to be able to do some of those cool styles that you can achieve with um, watercolor or acrylics and things like that, but I'm not quite to that point where I'm comfortable with that. But that's to say that, I mean, I've been expanding with colored pencils, and I absolutely love some of the color ranges that you can get with layering colored pencils that you can't always get with markers, because you'd have to layer a lot of different wet mediums to achieve the same thing. And with coloring books, especially with those that have two-sided, that's a very dangerous thing to do. So right now I'm mostly with the marker, pen, and colored pencils. That's my wheelhouse. That's where I like to live. What are some of my favorite animes? Ooh, good question. Good question. I obviously grew up watching Sailor Moon. First foyer into that experience, and oh, did I obsess over that show so bad, to the point where I was trying to find where I could get the manga. And of course, at that time, manga wasn't a huge thing in the US. And so it's like running down like this weird rabbit hole of poor choices and trying to get these things. But that's what started me. And it, while it hasn't necessarily aged the best, and they do have a bunch of remakes out now, there's still like this nostalgic place I have for it. Otherwise, Inuyasha. Um, okay, this one's really obscure, and I don't know if a lot of people have even watched it, but there was this anime based off of a Japanese book series, which I actually have the first book in, but it's literally written in Japanese, so I need Google Translate to even contemplate reading it. But it's called Ghost Hunt, and it is by far one of my favorite animes to date. And I would love if that book series ever got translated so I could read the original source material. That would just be a dream come true for me. But there was also, this is another one that I don't think a lot of people know about or have ever heard of. And I honestly, it's so hard to find anymore, but it's called, I believe, Blue Seed. And that one has always lived rent free in my head, and I would love to find it again to see if it is as good as I remember it being. And maybe it's just that I really like the storyline for that one. But I think it's one of those ones that you can only find for expensive rebuy DVD. And so I've never never really picked it up because A, our DVD player doesn't really work that well anymore. And I don't know if I really want to buy another DVD player. But it's also the fact that I don't know if I want to pay that price for it. But there was something about that storyline that I really liked. And of course, um, if I remember right, it's a story about a couple of high school girls who end up in a completely different universe because they get sucked in through a book at the library. But at some point in the storyline, like the other universe and our universe kind of like start merging together. And there's this whole thing about a blue seed that is a source of power, and it's, remember right, embedded in one of the girls at different points. See, and it's been so long that even the storyline is starting to get a little foggy in my brain. So I would really love it if I could watch it again, but maybe it's good that I can't, because then it'll sit there as this perfect example of an anime that I really loved. But oh, and then of course I got some of the classics too. I mean, Fruit Basket. Really loved both the animes and um, the manga because I believe, yeah. So they redid the anime not too long ago. So I've watched both versions of it. And of course, I've got all the manga. And no, I mean, I lean more on the what people would consider like the girly and then the supernatural. Never been into the really heavy fighting animes. But I think it's been a while since I've sat down and actually watched an anime. Like I said, a lot of time I'm leaning more towards the K dramas. And there's a few J dramas here and there. I have tried to do a couple of Taiwanese ones as well. But I mean, I think I've just gotten so used to these speech patterns of the Japanese and Koreans that sometimes it's hard to get used to the Taiwanese or the Chinese kind of cadence or even humor. I think I'm gonna finish this section right here. And then I may. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Sumi Kiss. Oh, How could I? How could I have forgot that one? Yes, you're welcome for that cultural experience. Oh, Supernatural. Okay, I watched Supernatural as it was first coming out. Absolutely adore like the first 4 or 5 seasons. And then I went to college and didn't have cable at some point in there. So getting my Supernatural fix was a little harder to do. But have gone back several times and rewatched Supernatural and slowly gotten further and further into the series because I haven't seen the whole thing at this point. Because one thing about binging Supernatural at this point, with how long it is it gets weirdly repetitive. And you don't notice it when it's first coming out and you're just getting one piece of it at a time. But when you're watching it like back to back to back to back to back, you start to wonder why the heck do we keep falling into these same patterns of trying to save each other, but not like honoring each other's choices to save the other one. And it's just, it's like, wait, why am I watching this again? So I have to take breaks from it so that I don't want to assassinate either of the brothers because they're once again being dumb. But I do really love Supernatural. There is a bit of nostalgia, especially in the early seasons of Supernatural for me. And there are certainly some episodes that I will go back and I will watch just because I want to see that specific episode again. Because it makes my heart happy. Like the Ghost Facers. I periodically just break out into the Ghost Facers theme song because it's one of those things that just sticks with you. There are just some extremely wonderful episodes in that series. So eight is okay. That is the best ringtone ever, Mike. Oh, I do like Castiel. I really do. Um, like I said, there are just like some key cultural references at this point. I mean, I almost wish I could find a supernatural sci-fi show that has hit me as hard as Supernatural or Stargate or Buffy has done. And I mean, there are some. Oh, Haunting of Hill House. That's a more modern one. But I don't. It feels a little harder to find those kind of shows that just hits the right place. And I guess you could put Stranger Things on that list as well. But part of the problem with Stranger Things is it's taken so long between seasons that you kind of lose a little bit of that sentiment. I don't know. Okay, so I have been at this for okay, almost an hour now. I went longer than I probably should have. But we had some decent conversations today, and I think that just kind of made me lose track of time. So let's see if I can zoom out for you. So we did this whole section right here. It wasn't nearly as far as I kind of wanted to get because I wanted to hit maybe up here too. But I'd have to do all of this as well. So it's probably good that we stopped here. I I absolutely enjoy talking with you guys today, and I'm gonna try and pick up a newer cadence because sometimes like I said, I get too focused on my coloring. Sometimes talking about life is just fun. So, next time we will still be coloring bark unless I really have a sudden urge to color in these owls. We'll see. I will put up a reminder notification schedule thing. I don't know what you really call it when I pre-schedule out this live stream, but I usually do it sometime between Wednesday and Friday so that you guys can click the notify me or remind me button so that the second I go live, you get that notification. So if you want to see that go up, feel free to subscribe so you see that come up in your feed. If you don't, totally okay, because I will post out that I'm going live on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter. So just going to let everybody know that I'm going live, but I would love to see you guys again next weekend. I usually aim for Saturdays around this time. And of course, if I can't do Saturday, I'll probably set it up for Sunday afternoon. But I do hope I will see you guys again next weekend, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.